When developing applications, it is useful to have all the parameters independently for each environment. So in this chapter, we will learn how to create a configuration parameter that will store the number of rounds per game. To achieve this, we will first make a new config folder by right-clicking, New, and then Folder. Now let's right-click on the folder we just created, select New, and then create a config parameter. We use the name total rounds per game, and in the window we select the format of the parameter, in this case numeric. To assign a value to the parameter, we just need to enter the environment configuration, clicking on the gear on the upper right, and on the microservice configuration, we can see the parameter we just created. Then click on the Set Now option and introduce a value. In our case, it will be 5 rounds per game. A good practice is to create a function that will return this parameter value, which will be called through all the microservices. This will allow in the future to modify this value through an API and not with a full deploy. We will do a right click on the config folder and then function. And then we will give the function the name get total rounds per game. This will open the file where we will implement the function. The first thing we are going to do is to define this function's signature. To do this, we select a return type for the function by clicking on the 3 blue dots, and in this case, we will select the type integer. Now we create a local variable where we will store the config parameter value. To do this, we will click on the plus sign, and by clicking on the 3 dots, we will again select the variable type, also an integer. Then we click on the other 3 dots on the right and we give the variable a name, which we will be using total rounds per game. Now for the function's implementation, we have the blocky section where we can find all the common programming language operators and functions, having the most common ones on the top of the list. Through a drag and drop mechanism, we can build the function's body. This simple way of writing code will ease up the developer's labor, making it impossible to make syntax errors. We also have a quick search tool for the blockies, so you don't have to manually scroll until you find the ones you need. In this case, we will write config, so we can find the read config parameter blocky. Once we located the blocky, we drag it to the implementation's body, and by clicking on the 3 dots, we can select the variable we just created, and on the other 3 dots, we can select the config parameter we want to read. Now we only need to return the value of the variable, and by erasing the text on the quick search box and dragging the return block, we will have the return instruction ready to use. The 3 dots in this blocky will open an expression editor, where we can write expressions much like any other programming language. Some common expressions are functions, arithmetic operations, comparisons, etc. This expression editor has an autocomplete engine that will give us help writing and finding functions that are accessible through the system we are calling from. We are going to get more in depth into these functions in future chapters as we progress in our functions implementation. In this case, the expression is just to write a circumflex and total rounds per game, which is the name of the variable, concluding the implementation of the function.